Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another big update. So in today's update I really just want to take a revisit once again to talk a little bit about the $10,200 unemployment tax cut. Especially because I do notice that there were a lot of people that were wondering about whether or not we will be able to see this program come again in 2022. Now, maybe to just start a little bit about this year, only because there are still actually a lot of people that are still waiting for their tax return, even for this specific year right now. And specifically, we are talking about several 100,000 people, maybe even over 1 million at this point. But the idea is that if you have already received your unemployment tax return, I know it's been a couple of months, then huge congrats. But for anyone that it still happens to be waiting, just know is that the IRS, as mentioned, is that they did end up recently announcing that they sent out 430,000 people their tax returns, specifically for those that are unemployed. And they do have plans, I believe, is that before the end of this month, if you are still waiting, that they will send out another wave of several 100,000 people, and they will now be sending a final wave of several 100,000 people before the end of this year. So there's going to be one wave this month, and then there's going to be another wave next month. So hopefully for any one of those like several 100,000 people that are still waiting, it can finally come in one of those particular waves. Maybe feel free to comment if you've already received it, whether you received it this month, so as in this recent wave that just happened last week, or maybe you're someone that has already received it for several months ago now, which is the really great news. So now to move on to basically talking about next year's tax cut situation. So we're gonna get right to it, but it's always gonna be real fast. Before we begin, the same exact rule, consider smashing the like button because it is always greatly appreciated. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification button, especially because at least we are finally seeing progress and more people are officially getting it. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts, whether you've got your tax cut or tax returns already, or honestly just really about anything. So with that being said, let's get this video started right on the spot. So when it comes to the $10,200 tax cut for unemployed people for next year, there are really two sides of this story. The first side of the story is really about the federal taxes, so specifically about the $10,200 tax cut on federal levels. The second one has to do with things on the state level, about whether the states are going to cover it. So to maybe start specifically about the federal level, is that the story is that right now, sadly, there are no specific plans to do some kind of $10,200 unemployment tax cut for next year, specifically again on the federal level, because that's what we're talking about. However, because at the end of the day, now that they've officially basically approved the fourth stimulus package, specifically the physical infrastructure, the next couple of weeks when they come back from vacation this week because of Veterans Day, so next week, and then of course they are going on vacation the following week for Thanksgiving, but over the next couple of weeks, the goal is that they're now going to be starting to talk about a lot more about the social programs. There is a chance, I know people want a very concrete answer, but because this is something that they've just literally just started, hopefully it's understandable that everything has to start with talks before they can actually finalize anything. So hopefully that's understandable. But the story is that it is very possible that as they're now starting to negotiate social programs, they will be talking a lot about what they want to do. And these are, again, programs that have to do with putting money in people's pockets, or in this particular situation, you can even say is that taking less money from people's pockets, which is still pretty similar, or certainly relatively the equivalent. Now, because of that reason, we don't know what they're ultimately going to say, but it is at least something that it's just possible and it's on the surface. Again, I know people want concrete answers, but it is just physically what's happening right now. So now that we've covered things related to the federal taxes, next is going to be things related to the state taxes. Now, the state unemployment taxes, whether or not we're going to have a tax cut, this is something that is actually very probable. So this is something that actually has a lot more likelihood to happen. And the big story to this is that because when it comes to the state level and every state is very, very different. This one is going to have a lot more variation, so it's not going to be like a clear-cut set answer that, applies to everyone in the country. Right now at this time, I believe, is that there are actually already several states that don't really collect taxes on unemployment to begin with, actually. So examples of these specific states happen to be states such as like Florida, Alaska, Nevada, South Dakota, Wyoming, Texas, and Washington and Arkansas. Arkansas, I believe it's something that they're only going to temporarily do, but the great news is that they've stated that they will not be collecting taxes on the state level for unemployment. I believe California has set plans. I don't know if it's official yet, but I believe is that they have set plans that they will likely not be collecting unemployment taxes either. Now, I do believe is that Colorado did state that they will be collecting unemployment taxes, so that is maybe just something to note. Now, beyond this is that there are also several states that currently have some kind of proposal on the table right now in order to do something related to unemployment taxes. I believe is that currently at this time, North Carolina, South Carolina, so really both Carolinas, and I believe also interestingly the state of Oregon, they currently have some kind of proposal where they either want to not try to basically waive the unemployment tax or essentially just not raise the tax or reduce the tax currently at this time. So what this means is that essentially is that if you happen to be there, again, this is a proposal, so this is not official yet, but essentially if you happen to be there, what's going to happen if this is able to go through is that they won't necessarily just waive the taxes in its entirety, but they may try to at least just reduce the taxes, so you do still at the end of the day save a lot of money. And I still do think is that that's really great news, again, because at the end of the day, anything to put extra money in our pockets or to protect the money that's already inside of our pockets, I think that's very, very great news. Now, if you happen to be someone that's still waiting for your tax return for this specific year, so 2021, then the big thing to notice is that if you're not able to get it by the very, very end of this year, because again, there's still a couple of waves that they're hoping to send out, then the big thing is that your tax return is probably going to get rolled over into next year. So in a lot of ways, it's very possible that next year in 2022, you can still very, very much end up getting a tax return to make up for the previous year. I do believe is that it's very probable that you may end up having to claim it when you actually do your taxes the following year. So essentially, when you do your 2021 taxes in 2022, they can potentially roll over those, like the refund that you're owed for this year that, maybe went through some delay for various reasons, and it will actually end up stacked with whatever amount of taxes you're owed or owe, depending on your particular situation. It's all going to get combined, and then they're hoping to essentially do it next year, which maybe leads on to maybe just the last point that I really want to talk about is that if you're someone that wants to get a little bit of an early head start, because I do know it's several months, but it's always nice to be early. In terms of preparing for your taxes next year, the big thing to notice is that in every single unemployment portal, actually exactly like last year, you're likely going to find, and it probably is not ready now because we are still in this year, but eventually, likely inside of your unemployment portal, they're going to be coming out with the form called the 1099G. That form has all of the stuff related to the tax side of your unemployment. That is basically the document that you are going to take and then use it to fill out your taxes in the coming year. And depending on how the math works out, whether you do it with your accountant or whether you do it with TurboTax, HRBlock, or just the typical method, that is going to determine what ends up ultimately happening next year. But the big idea is that that's what I really just wanted to cover in today's update. So it's definitely, there's at least good news, certainly at least on the state side. The federal side is a little bit uncertain, but at least we are making progress. So we just have to see what happens from here. So as always, if you guys made it this far, huge thanks for getting all the way through. Consider smashing the like button if you guys haven't done so. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell. Of course, you guys can decide. And as always, feel free to comment any questions, personal thoughts about honestly just really anything. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much again.